Welcome to the Everyday FI podcast. I'm your host, Megan Combs, a personal finance junkie who learned from all of life's money mistakes. Come with me as I explore the incredible stories of those on the path to financial independence. Plus, I'll teach you how to start your own journey. Are you ready?
All right. Hello. Thanks for joining me today. This will be a special episode of Everyday FI because we're recording live at CampFI Mid-Atlantic. As you can tell, we are having a lot of fun here, and I'm going to be talking to three folks today who are on the FI path, Annie, Kim, and Eric. Thank you guys for joining us. And I'm going to be joined by Mark Troutman, who is the host of the Mark's Money Mind show. And so let's get started. So my first question, what I'm going to do is ask a question and have each of you answer it in turn, if that's cool with you. So yeah, let's just start with Kim and then down to Annie and Eric, and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kim Hunter-Borse of KHB Financial, and I'm happy to be here at my third CampFI.
Hi, I'm Annie German of Annie German, and I'm happy to be here as well. This is my fourth CampFI.
Hi, I'm Eric Biltonen of Private Contractor for U.S. Government, and this is my first CampFI.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. I'm so excited. So this is my first live podcast, so if I stumble over anything, just go with it, y'all. So my question is, how did each of you find the financial independence movement? Who introduced it to you, and why did it click for you?
I wouldn't say any one person introduced me to it. I think a panic attack introduced me to it.
Please say more.
As most of you know, I'm married to someone, we're a blended family, and when we got married, he trusted me to manage our finances, and as a stepmom, I thought it was my job to bring the fun. And while I was managing our money, I was managing our lifestyle, I was managing us into a whole. And I confessed that to him while we were on vacation, a vacation we could not afford. And in that panic and that haste, I just started digging down a rabbit hole. Internet, blogs, podcasts, you name it, I found it and delved into it. And I came across Dave Ramsey, as most people did, and I went down the path of the baby steps and learning the process. And I even coached a few people through it in my church. And then I got to the other end of it and was like, now what? Is that it? Like, what's the next step? And I just found that there was an opportunity to do some things differently. We were much older. There was a lot of material out there for those that are Gen Zers and millennials, and then it jumped right to retirement. At the time in 2016, there was nothing in between. But for anyone in the room that's of a certain age, there is now this great podcast out there called Catching Up to FI, if you can find it.
I've never heard of that one.
It's a great resource for those of us in this space, what I call the happy middle. And that's how I found it.
And I'm just joking about that because I've been on that a few times.
A few times, and they were great episodes.
So I found FI because when I got out of college, my brother recommended The Millionaire Next Door, so very basic. And then I spent a long time at the beginning of my career getting interested in like Susie Orman, Can I Afford It, those sorts of segments. Lots of different stuff, and I've always just been frugal, so I thought to myself, someday I'm not going to want to work anymore, and I hope I'm saving enough to do that, and I would play around with calculators, all of that sort of thing. So I was just like really into it, and I would listen to like podcasts and things like that, thinking there are other people out there who are also into this. And then I read Rachel Richards' Passive Income Aggressive Retirement, and I don't know if she mentioned CampFI or if she mentioned another podcast where they mentioned CampFI, but I ended up coming to CampFI in January of 2023, and I met all of you wonderful people, those of you who were there, and realized with communication with you all that there can be an actual specific end date, so it's not just in theory, and I'm very much looking forward to that already.
Excellent, thanks. Yeah, for quite some time, probably since grad school in the late 90s, I've been touching on various parts that you would say were FI aligned, but I had no idea what FI was. And sometimes it was good decisions, sometimes bad decisions. And then about 2.5 years ago, started to go through a divorce. And that turned my entire life and my finances upside down. Part of recovering from that process was to reach out to various friends and share the troubles I was going through. And one of them sort of started to pick up that there was these financial themes that were running through my issues that I was trying to deal with. And they said, more or less said, there is something that has the tools, the community, the framework that you can start to deal with this and rebuild, from where you are right now. You don't have to say you've missed it and it's all over. So that's kind of where I came to it. And then just getting introduced to some FI events and found the FI in Vegas event that was in April. That was amazing, and especially since it was focused on your life and not like dealing with the financial aspect of it. And then that was so wonderful, coming to this and looking for more.
Yeah, thank you. And that's how me and Eric met. So it was such a great event. I would totally do it again, even though Vegas is not exactly the most FI place in the country. But yeah. Okay, so what are y'all's why of FI? So why did you choose the financial independence community and way of life over other forms of personal finance?
If any of you are familiar with the Enneagram, I'm an 8, which is the equivalent of a type A personality. And I had a major aversion to paying someone to teach me how to manage money that I made. I was already annoyed by the fact that there were marketers out there trying to get me to spend my money in ways I shouldn't spend it. But it just felt wrong to pay someone else to teach me how to do it. And then when I found this community and I found that I could learn everything I needed to know from folks here, I jumped right in. I think the only thing I would caution everyone on is not to, and I think Mark mentioned it last night, not to listen to so many podcasts that you think everything that everyone else is doing applies to you in your situation.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed the FI community and the FI journey because I found that not only are you all nerdy like me and you like to talk about money and how to save your money, but I find that this particular community also recognizes that true wealth is time wealth, and many in the community do that. Enjoy their time by, what would be a typical sort of means, like living in a van, which I have done a couple of times, or spending time traveling abroad, even if that's solo, which I've done a couple of times. So for me, it's inspiration on how to spend my time and also education on how to make sure that I get the most out of my time and the most freedom to do it.
So, yeah, for me, it was really just that whole comprehensive nature of the FI community. And as I mentioned, the tools, the resources, the people are there. And I think, I could have gone to Fidelity and said, hey, how do I invest in my IRA? And they could have advised me on that to a degree. But this community has really blown me away with how they will support you wherever you are. You don't have to be fat FI. You can be anywhere in the journey. And they're very generous with their time and their knowledge. So that's what really sold me on it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I was talking to David, who is here with us at CampFI, who is one of the people who will look at your numbers and then tell you to quit your job. And I was so hopeful that he would tell me to quit my job, but obviously my numbers are not quite there. But he still said, when I said, I only have this much in investments, he's like, what do you mean only? You did that in 8 years. That's incredible. And I was like, oh, thanks. So yeah, And we had somebody yesterday share her story that was, definitely behind a lot of us. But everybody was so encouraging, even though she was nervous to share it and she felt like she was way behind all of us. We were supportive of that. And we were like, what you can do is what's important. And yeah, I think I agree. Having a community around finances is really what makes this special. So what does the other side look like for you guys? So once you reach financial independence, are you going to retire early? Are you going to keep working? What does that look like for you?
Well, I thought it would look like my retiring. We reached our financial independence number, and we initially planned on retiring either later this year or early next year. The plan was my husband was going to retire at the end of the year once our daughter matured off of our insurance at the age of 26, and then I would follow him. But life gets in the way and uproots things, and things change, and I find that I enjoy what I'm doing, so I'm just trying to figure it out. I think at some point I will say I've had enough and maybe scale back to either part-time or as a consultant, or I might just up and decide to walk away, but I do know it's not going to be in the next 30, 60, 90 days as I originally planned. And I'm peeking at my husband as I say this because he might not know that.
I just want to ask an additional question on that. So is it a matter of moving the goalposts, or is it something that you're saying, I really enjoy what I'm doing, and if so, have you been able to kind of create that job that is even better for you by saying no to portions of that job? I'm curious, have you been able to kind of mold that job to your liking?
I think that's a good question mark, but I'm kind of mad that you ask it at the same time. Is I have started delving into something that I really enjoy. I've been coaching other women and teaching them how to gain agency over their finances, and that gives me a lot of excitement, but I found that I was making that my next stressor. I spend so much time in my current job trying to move away from stressing out and creating that work-life balance, and I think I've mastered it, and it's given me hesitation to jump now into something new. So I do think I need to start scaling back on what I'm good at for my day-to-day and jump into what I'm starting to love, but just balance that with the notion that I don't want to leave one job for another and spend my entire life trying to rethink work-life balance. But again, I'm kind of mad at you for asking that question.
Well, I just think that a lot of people can kind of craft their next job or a current job into what they really love because you have the ability to potentially walk away if you needed to. So I was just curious if you were kind of redesigning your current job, but it sounds like it's a new kind of endeavor. But yeah, I would encourage you to think about how you can make that endeavor work for you. And, that's kind of what I'm doing with my podcast. I'm doing it for fun and not for money. And it sounds like you don't need necessarily to do things for money. So, craft a job for fun if you can. That would be my, very small piece of, not advice, but just a suggestion.
I think it's a great suggestion. And I think next year I might be that person like Chris telling you, you've changed my life.
Yeah. Mark changes a lot of people's lives, y'all. So, Annie, go ahead.
Yeah, life after 5 for me looks like sleeping in. And I feel that alone is enough. I could stop talking. But I think my life after 5 looks like complete freedom. And now I feel that when I am juggling, a full-time job that I'm passionate about, that I have, that responsibility and that load, it takes a lot out of you. So just knowing that I would have like the freedom and the comfort and my personal time to figure out kind of who I am when I'm not a career professional. And I also think that it allows for, like, for example, I could go back to Bali again this year and not having to worry about taking PTO, right? So anytime I can just maximize spending time with family, friends, doing those activities that I'd really like. And I also froze my eggs, and so I figured if I use those eggs and have spawn, which jury's still out on that, everybody, but if I do, then I will have the freedom to decide what kind of parent I want to be without the obligation of the career. And I've never been a person who enjoys routine, so it's miraculous that I have been able to maintain employment for my adult years. And so that way I can, live a lifestyle that I design that is probably not the typical.
Excellent, thanks. I'm so early in the process, so I'm not really quite sure when After 5 is going to be. But what it looks like is conceptually it's going to be I just get more of my time back. That's really what I'm aiming to do. And the way I envision it is sort of transitioning away from the work I do to more of the work I love to do and winding that down. So if it's fewer hours, great. If it's better clients, great. If it's more time to myself, great. So that's really what I'm aiming for. If I ever get to a point where I can say I don't have to work anymore, I don't know yet because some of the numbers are still being worked out.
So what's the work you love to do?
The work I love to do, I love fitness kind of stuff, health and fitness things and wellness, and I would really love to transition all the way into that. Currently, I'm doing kind of organizational development and coaching work with the U.S. government, and a lot of that involves large event planning, small event planning, helping different companies through transitions, diagnosing their problems, and kind of developing a process through that. That can easily transition to health and wellness and fitness.
Nice. Those are all really great after FI accomplishments and things that you want to do. So thank you for sharing that. So what strategy are you using to reach financial independence? And if you've already reached it, what strategy did you use? So is it stock investing, real estate investing, business, something else?
So for us, we are that unicorn that still gets some semblance of a pension. So we have a series of tax-deferred accounts, 401ks, 403bs. I think it's a 457, but you got me thinking, Mark, that I need to rethink that or investigate it. I defer part of my salary, and it's a tax-deferred account. And then we both have pensions. He has a massive pension, and I have a modest one. And our strategy was, I want to say I went to an economy event, and Frank Vasquez was talking about drawdown strategy, and I was brave enough to ask if I set aside at least 3 to 4 years of our living expenses in a high yield savings account, and we just live off of that for some time before we start drawing down from the tax deferred accounts, will we be in a low enough tax bracket where I don't have to worry about it? And he said, you absolutely can do that. And that's the approach or the strategy that we had in mind. And then I started hearing about this Roth conversion ladders, and I'm delving into that and thinking about that strategy. But initially it was, we threw as much money as we could into these deferred accounts. We earned pensions, and we were just going to walk away and enjoy life from there. But that Mark, again, tax conversion ladders.
Causing problems again. I know. I'm sorry about that.
Causing problems.
Yeah, so my strategy is, majority is in investments through retirement, like 401ks. I also have a pension from an employer that I will be able to tap into. I own real estate. I own my own home, and I house hack. I've owned a couple of homes along the way, and I have always house hacked, so I have a roommate currently. I anticipate that will continue to be my lifestyle unless, spawn. So it's a couple of different things, and also I get a lot of reward out of just, for example, during COVID, I got my motorcycle license just as an activity that was COVID friendly. And I realized after I got the license and a motorcycle, I didn't have many places to go. So it became a goal of mine to pay off the value of the motorcycle by Grubhubbing. And so every day I would always have somewhere to go because there'd be some restaurant that has to deliver some food to some customer. So side hustles to me are more just the ones that I enjoy for random reasons.
Mine is primarily investments and working on those, and then pairing that up with reducing the cost of living, which fortunately is not too hard for me.
Yeah. Do you have any details on that you want to share with us?
For the investment side, it's just luckily in grad school I had a roommate who made me open up a Fidelity account, so enough is accumulated in there that's been doing pretty well. And then as far as the cost of living thing, I used to live overseas for quite some time, and it was just a very, very cheap place to live, and I adapted to that because it forced me to focus on things that were actually important to me, which was basically food, family, and friends, and that's pretty good. I didn't really focus on accumulating things.
Yeah, the 3 Fs.
Yes.
Nice. And which FI path are you targeting? So Coast FI, Barista FI, Fat FI, Lean FI, regular FI?
I think we're regular FI. I think Fat FI is that I want to spend a whole bunch of money every year. I do think for us the most important thing is to be able to continue to bribe our adult children to come and spend time with us each year. So we do that with a vacation. But other than that, we live a pretty comfortable life between New York City and Pennsylvania, and I don't think it's fat but I think it's comfortable. For example, we're at that age, we're in our 50s and 60s. I don't think we will ever take a vacation where we're camping where it doesn't include maybe glamping, a bed.
So no buckets for you?
There are no buckets in our future.
How about you, Annie? Are there buckets in your future?
Yes, probably. I would say that I technically I think I am Fat Fi, but it's not because I want to live a lavish lifestyle. It's because I already live a lavish lifestyle, and I would like to maintain it. So I probably could do, not Fat Fi, and retire early if I decide that I'm no longer passionate or interested in my career or working at all. But I have found, I reached CampFI a while ago, and I do think that I stumbled upon the FIRE movement probably maybe 10 years ago or even 15, reading a blog of some sort. And I think that I really do believe in enjoying the journey along the way, and so I haven't deprived myself of everything along the way. And so it's kind of like a coast FI / enjoy life along the way FI.
Great. And for me, I think it's regular FI, but I'm still working on the numbers on that. So lean FI would work as well. But I'm playing that off against how long I have to go, because at 57, I'm kind of running out of steam.
Yeah, I get that. So just for some context for people, first of all, the bucket comment was just, we have been talking about doing certain van life activities and how you go to the restroom and whether you use a bucket or a real toilet. So that's where that came from. And then just to define a little bit the different FI strategies. So Fat FI, I believe, is 30 times your expenses. Regular FI is 25 times. Lean FI is 20 times. Barista and Coast FI is where you get to a point in your investments where you can stop contributing, but once it grows to the age of 65, you'll have a regular retirement, and you can work during that time like part-time to cover your expenses. So your expenses are really low to do that, and so those are the different things I think I mentioned. Yeah.
I appreciate that definition because I don't think I recognize that as Fat Fi.
Yeah. Fat FI is 30 times. That's quite fat.
We're all learning something here.
Yeah,
today.
I've also heard Fat Fi living on over 100,000. So I guess
That's what
it
I
depends.
heard.
Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe we're old, and that's just
Yes.
well, I'm old. You're not.
I'm old.
Me too. That was mine too. So I haven't done the 30 times. Now I'm wondering if I'm really Fat Fi.
Yeah, I think I got that one from like Jonathan on Choose FI. So if I'm wrong, somebody comment on this podcast page and please let me know.
I think there's a lot of definitions for these, so I don't think there's any one right or wrong definition for each. So I think they both probably are effective.
That's true.
Plus that one accounts for inflation, which is good.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And Mark, which ones do you like?
I guess I kind of live the Fat Fi lifestyle, and what I will say is that when you start off at whatever regular Fi, you tend to lean towards Fat Fi later, and I just think that's just the case for a lot of people. And I think some people who start off thinking they're going to be lean Fi or barista Fi, maybe that works for your certain stage of life, but that may not work later. So I find that especially me, who's older, likes to do certain things that maybe cost a little bit more money and travel more and maybe not use a bucket and stay in nicer places. So it kind of pushes you towards that. And for most people, you'll find that their portfolios are actually going to grow more than they expect because we're all kind of solving for worst case scenario. And so you may end up starting off regular Fi and finding that you could be, Fat Fi and spend more money just because your assets have grown. And in my case, over the last, almost 10 years, my portfolio has doubled, even though I've, been drawing from it. So it just has given me more room to spend money, and I'm doing it with friends and family and travel and things like that. It's not on stuff; it's on experiences.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's all about when you want to pull the trigger on, stopping work or going down to part-time work and which one of those works for you. Because for me, I want to do the Coast Fi / Barista Fi life because I want to be able to quit work sooner, but I know I won't be at regular Fi. I won't be at 25x my expenses. I won't even be 20x. But I know that if I were to go towards Barista Fi and Coast Fi, that I could quit working corporate sooner, and so that's why I go for that.
Are you ready to take control of your financial future? Do you want to learn how to set powerful goals and invest wisely? Have you been yearning to quit your 9 to 5? Then my workbook, Your Journey to Freedom, is for you. This workbook is your roadmap to financial success. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just starting out, it's designed to help you define your goals, create a plan, and take action towards building wealth. Inside, you'll find practical exercises and tools that help you identify your short, medium, and long-term financial goals, develop a personalized investment strategy tailored to these goals and your risk tolerance, and track your progress and stay accountable to your financial objectives. Plus, there's bonus content like a quiz to test what you've learned and a budget worksheet. With easy-to-follow instructions and insightful prompts, this workbook will empower you to make confident decisions and stay focused on your financial journey. Don't let another day go by without taking charge of your financial life. Invest in yourself and your future with the Your Journey to Freedom workbook. Order now and start turning your dreams into reality. Visit my website at alatemoneyinvesting.com/guides to get your copy today and start your journey to financial freedom.
So my next question is, what are your current struggles right now? And they don't have to be FI related necessarily, but if they are FI related, are they impacting the timeline at all?
I think the struggle for me is, I don't think it's an identity concern or tying my identity to my career anymore, but I think I need to shift my focus on expectations of myself or my family. So we have adult children that are 26 and 27, and they are living their lives and they're thriving in it. And for some reason, as stepmom, I always thought my job was to be that safety net for them. And I need to understand that they are fine and I can step back and breathe. And I just need to now shift that focus to my husband and I. We, at the beginning, said it's us against the world. We're like that tag team. And my struggle is letting go of that notion that I still need to carry or make sure they're okay and just let them be, because I think I drive them a little crazy with it as well. So that's my struggle right now.
My struggle was probably before the end of this past year. I was with the same employer for 19 years, and I had the wonderful golden handcuffs that were really accruing. And I got to the place where I didn't think I was showing up in the best capacity every day. I wanted to, do something a little bit more challenging. It didn't seem possible to stay where I was physically located, and I have a life and do that. And so I really struggled with, do I leave the job and jump ship? And David Robinson helped me out with that. Thank you, David. And he really helped to change my life. And I went to a different employer, and now I'm passionate about work again, which is awesome. So while I'm in the middle and still doing the career thing, it's so much more enjoyable to be doing a job that you love. And now I get to figure out how to set boundaries for myself again and make sure that I'm enjoying life along the way.
My biggest challenge right now is actually the budget, that first step. And when the divorce came, we went from two incomes to one income. And I've really got enthusiastic, and I was like, let's sit down and get this thing in good shape. And I can't, because we're stuck in a high cost of living area, and I've got a kid who is in high school, and I didn't want to move them from there. They're getting ready to go to college. I have an older one in college, and there's all those expectations, which I can change, but changing them for them is another challenge. So really kind of confronting the realities of what needs to change versus those easy ones like, don't eat out as much. The ones that are like, well, you might have to work to pay for college. That's really my biggest challenge, is really facing those realities and changing my mindset and coming up with actual changes that are going to get it into good shape.
And what are y'all's strategies for overcoming these challenges, if you have any?
I did say I was an 8, right?
Yes, you did.
I think it's just listening to them. I have conversations with my kids. They are fantastic. And I'm not just saying that because I'm their mom, but they are fantastic. And I'm privileged enough to be able to have these frank and open discussions with them so I can talk to them about these struggles. And they are honest enough to tell me, yeah, you're a bit overbearing, but we're okay with it. Or, or they'll just tell me to back up. And sometimes my husband's good at saying, okay, you need to stop. And just listening and not thinking that, oh, on the surface, they don't need me to do this for them, but behind the scenes, they still need me to do this for them. And I know that's ridiculous, but yeah. But I'm working on it. I'm an 8.
I don't know if this is helpful, but my parents allowed me to be relatively independent on my own, and I'm not going to say why or if that's just something that they just wanted to do, but I made a lot of mistakes, but I feel like that's how I became the human I am today, and I'm very proud of that. And so I think I don't have kids, and I definitely don't have 27-year-old kids, but I think if you are able to allow them to make some of the mistakes on their own, that's just how they're going to learn, and it's going to be so much better for them in the long run, even though it seems scary right now because they're making the mistake. It's still going to teach them a very valuable lesson, right?
The logical side of me knows that's 100% true.
Yeah, but the 8 doesn't.
Yeah. I think part of it is, as a stepmom, they didn't come into my lives until they were 10 and 11, and there are certain aspects of it that it's a control issue for me, and I just need to release it. But you're 1,000% right.
So I don't know if this is like financial support or not, but the one thing that we did in our family was we had always joked with our daughter that as soon as you graduate from college, you're off balance sheet. And it was kind of a joke, but it wasn't really a joke. And she heard that, but I think it was also good for us to say that because then we were telling ourselves the same thing. So, I mean, I don't know if it's financial support you're giving them or just emotional support. And certainly I give my daughter emotional support. But when it comes to the financial support, that does, help. It is kind of a joke, but it's also pretty serious. And I think, letting young people make mistakes, they learn from that. So that's been my experience. And so far, I haven't had to bail her out of anything. But, and like I said, it's as much for her as it is for me.
I think for us, it isn't financial. They're off the payroll. And we were very clear about that along the way. We'll get you through undergrad, and then you get established and you're off the payroll. But I think subconsciously in the back of my mind, I have that little safety net for them. And I just expect that as they make mistakes, I don't want them to have to fall but so far. Simply because I see these 17 to 18-year-olds signing up for mortgages and taking out student loan debt that is way beyond them and following their friends down a path that's so frightening that I just know the struggle that we went through digging out of $69,000 worth of debt with big shovels. And these kids don't have as big a shovel, and I don't want them to have to dig. And I think I need to listen and let them dig if they have to, and then bail them out later if I have to.
Or not.
I know.
But the one thing that actually somebody gave me some advice, I had a financial plan done recently, and we were talking about estate planning and so forth, and he was suggesting if you want to give money, don't do it from just writing a check and handing it to her. You could do things like fund her Roth IRA, or suggest that she max out her 401k, for example, and make her whole. So you could do things financially that will help them without really just writing this blank check that they could do anything with or bailing out a credit card bill or something like that. So that might be a way to kind of give the financial support, also set them up for the future. And I'm just, suggesting that's what, my quote financial planner also suggested from an estate planning standpoint, but that could also work from that perspective.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, so overcoming my struggle right now would be just like, being in the middle, still working. And I think it's just going to be a matter of being intentional and creative. So being intentional about making sure I'm planning adequately to set the boundaries at work for when I, need personal time and or have time I want to spend or travel or trips I want to take. I just have to be more intentional about it to plan in advance, right, with the job. The creative piece is that the job that I have at this point is majority remote. So get creative and make sure that I'm taking advantage of that with like long travel or spending multiple weeks potentially like just working remotely in certain locations where I want to be, since I don't have complete time freedom to just go without the job. So that's it. Just making sure that I take advantage of what I can take advantage of along the way.
We had a couple people talk about taking sabbaticals here at CampFI, and they were between 3 months and I believe, 7 or 10 months was Chris? Yeah. Did that inspire you at all to do something like that?
That's a great question. I actually took a sabbatical, but it was only a month. But to me, that was a big deal. And I took one last year when I lived in an SUV, so that was a whole nother situation.
With your bucket?
There was no bucket in that particular vehicle. But no, so that is a great option, and actually it was something where I had been toying around with potentially taking a significant amount of time off between jobs, but a job came along that I'm really passionate about. So maybe in the future it's something I might entertain, but I've luckily gotten a little invigoration by just switching things up.
Yeah, great. And you could take your spawn with you.
Maybe.
Yeah, for me, luckily my youngest graduates high school next month, so I'm already in plans to sell the house and move to a lower cost area living. So that's going to take a big chunk of that challenge with the budget out of there. The other is just talking with the kids about college and getting a bit more realistic about how that's going to be funded and what it means to them. Also trying to educate them at the same time of why they don't want to just take out loans and pursue the, it looks so nice to live in a dorm and go to your favorite school, but I know from having my student loans, I don't want them to go through that same process.
Yeah, so this was a challenge that my wife and I had with my daughter. Not a challenge, but what we did was we brought her into the conversation of what college costs and so forth. And actually what we had done was put money in her account and told her this is how much money was saved for you, and if you spend more, you need to figure it out. If you spend less, you get to keep the difference. Of course, being the person she is and an accountant, she decided to spend less and keep the difference. But bringing her into the conversation and actually letting her see the money kind of flow through her account and out the door is a bigger realization than just saying, which school you're going to and you writing the check. So I would, potentially bring them into the conversation. And I do this with my high school students too, because I'm a big fan of getting an education at any school as long as you put your mind to it. And I remind people that there were 5 of us when I first started my first job, and we went to all different schools, from state schools to schools that were Ivy League colleges. Yeah, we all had the same start. So it really didn't matter where we got our education. We all had the same start. So I would just suggest maybe bringing them in the picture from the finances, and even to the point of having them write the checks potentially, because it hurts when you write those checks.
And that's actually what I did with my oldest daughter, is because I was helping her with some things, but I was writing the checks. And now at the beginning of the year, I just write her a check. She still has the money, but now she has to manage it for the year.
Yeah, and it's you're bringing them in as partners and showing them that you too can be an adult, and here's how to do it. It's like teaching them how to fish rather than fishing for them, or whatever that analogy is, I forget. Anyway, and I think that's going to, they're, like I said, they're going to make mistakes, right? But if you show them that you trust them to be adults and to take on this responsibility, and that you have faith that they can do it, I think that's going to go a long way in helping them make the correct decision. Yeah, go ahead.
And just one other thing, when we were digging out of debt, it was around the same time our kids were going to college. So we brought them into the conversation and said, here's where we are. We're trying to prepare for our retirement so we don't end up living on your couches. And we need you to participate in this with us. So we were very frank to say you need to choose the best in-state school so you can get some type of grants, because we knew they wouldn't qualify for financial assistance because of our income. But we also put some onus on them to apply for scholarships. There's this great organization called Scoli.com that will spit out scholarships that are relative to their interest. And we had them work summers, and they were responsible for their own pocket money and books throughout the school year. So by engaging them in the process. And then last but not least, we said to them, if in fact, all things considered, if in the end you need to take out loans, if you take out $24,000, we will pay it off for you. If you take out $24,000.50, we will not pay a dime. And we put that challenge out there and made it so strict because they would take it seriously, and they did. So that was our way of putting kind of like a carrot on a stick, I guess they call it, to challenge them to be creative about their education and not think they could just write out or sign up for student loans for trips to Cabo.
Yeah, and your kids are so lucky to have you because, okay, I love my parents. Parents, if y'all are listening to this, I love you. But I was given very poor advice when I went to grad school. So I did pretty well in my undergrad. It was only around $9,000 of debt that I got. But grad school was $65,000 because I went to a school in New York City, and my father, who I love dearly, told me to take out the maximum amount of student loans and live off of them because my job was being a student. And I get where he was coming from because he's very much an academic, and he believed that having a job would distract me from my studies. But that's the one regret that I have about that experience. I don't regret getting a master's degree, which I no longer use because it's art history and I don't do that anymore. And I don't regret living in New York City, but I do regret living off of student loans because I am still paying it and I will be paying it until 2029. And so your kids are so lucky to have you. Also, I'll be putting anything that we're referencing in the show notes for this. So the Scoli.
Scoli.
Yeah, I will put
Fantastic.
I'll put that in the show notes for people. So don't worry about that. Okay, so now I want to talk about your wins. What are some current wins right now? Again, doesn't have to be FI related. Can be something else. What are they?
This is kind of contradictory for the FI community, but I think this came up as a topic of conversation at Economy on moving your mindset or shifting from the accumulation phase to the spending phase. I broke out in hives every time we had to spend something or wasn't throwing everything at investments, but now I think I shared in my introductions, I'm saying yes to everything. We're jumping out there. We took a trip to Savannah just to have dinner because it was a restaurant we've been looking at for the longest time, and we just jumped on a plane, went down, had dinner while we were there.
Which restaurant?
Oh, we went to the Gray in Savannah, and then we also, while we were there, went to the Husk. There was a third place we wanted to go to, but we couldn't get in because we just went down at the last minute. But use your points as you can, but when you can't use your points, just spend the money. If you can afford it, go.
The next step is having a fun bucket, right?
Oh, Mark, we're working on the fun bucket.
Wait, is this the same bucket that Annie had? No.
No, so for your listeners, the fun bucket is funding an account that literally is for all of those kind of extras and kind of taking a little cream off the top of your portfolio and specifically identifying it for those purposes, and so you can do guilt-free spending.
Yeah, I think my wins really just in general are the experiences that I've acquired. I've never been a sort of things person, so my minimalism has really helped, even though it's made my house look a little barren at times. So I think that's it. I've had an opportunity to travel. When I've wanted to travel, I started saying yes probably about 2015 when I discovered solo travel was for me. So anytime there's an idea and I say, I really want to do this, there's really no excuse as to why I'm not doing it now. And I've really lived that philosophy. Anytime that I could basically fit it in with PTO or get creative or ask for a sabbatical at work. So those are basically my wins. What's your favorite travel experience that you've had so far? I do believe the saying that favorite is really your top five. Favorite travel, I think Bali was wonderful, especially for the FI community. I also have spent time in South Africa and Botswana, and that was amazing. And those are for the international piece of it, and I also get an opportunity to travel with family to Hawaii on a pretty regular yearly or bi-yearly basis, and that's just, Hawaii is amazing.
Yeah, and for the listeners, there is an annual FI event that happens in Bali. Mm-hmm. I have not had the pleasure to go, but both Mark and Annie have gone. And
I'm going this fall.
Yeah, and Kim's going this fall.
Part of my yes.
I'm super jealous, and I am hopefully going in 2025. So I'll link that in the show notes too if anybody's interested. And yeah, Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, I think my best win right now is decluttering my house successfully, because I inherited a bunch of stuff from my parents, not really inherited, but got a lot of their knickknacks, personal items, which took up a lot of room in my house. And if anybody who's had to get rid of their parents' stuff knows there's this emotional part that you don't want to get rid of it at first. And then you let it sit for about 6 months to a year, and then you go, I'm not quite so attached to half of it anymore. But getting into a process where I can actually start letting this stuff go, and maybe even in some intentional way, like trying to give it to people and sell it, because some of it has value, and the other part, just let it go because I don't need it, I don't want it. And that's also played into other stuff I want to get rid of. So really decluttering the house and feeling good about it is much.
Nice. Yeah. Insert the Frozen Let It Go song here. I'd probably have to pay royalties on that one, though. Yeah. Did you use like Marie Kondo at all? Like, does this bring me joy type of stuff or anything?
I tried to use that one, but T-shirts and things don't bring me joy, but I keep them anyway. But no, there's actually a woman in Richmond who we are able to give things to, and then she will put them either on eBay or Facebook Marketplace and kind of do some of the research for us. And, we get a small cut. It's often less than what it's worth, but those things get taken care of that way.
Yeah, and it's nice to take that burden off yourself to try and do that. So that's a great hack.
Exactly.
Which actually leads me to my final question is, can you share a life hack recommendation or learning, or all three, with the community that maybe we can all learn from you?
For anyone just starting out, this is a life hack that we share with our children. It's do what you can with what you can. So if you can't max out your 401k and it's offered, start off with 1%. You can do anything with 1%. So 1%, if you make $1,500, 1% difference is like $15. You can give up 2 cups of coffee for $15. So if you are just starting out and you're saying, I don't have much money to invest, start off small, and then every year if you get a raise, if you get 2%, invest 1% and keep 1% for yourself. Make it small and incremental and easy and doable. I'm putting that out there for those that are new with us or young people just starting out.
I think my life hack is acknowledging something. So, for example, I think this is the first time in a public forum I have mentioned I might have spawn one day. So that way it'll make me have to address it at some time, and I know that time may have to be coming in the next couple of years. So what I would say is between that or saying, hi, I want a bigger community of friends, and kind of manifesting it, be open with it. Tell people it. And I think that's important, because the more that you share that message outwardly, you're hearing it yourself, number one, if it's a decision you have to make. But the people around you can help you. So especially for those who are on their financial journey, right, to say, hi, I'm really trying to repair my finances, or I'm trying to improve my finances, or I'm trying to learn how to invest with this particular goal in mind. And I think not just in this room and in the FI community, but people in any community, somebody will potentially receive that one day and then give you some additional help or advice or just an ear. And I think that can go a long way.
My hack is for people beginning is what was really important for me was to embrace reality of where my situation was. And a big part of that was printing out several months of every credit card and bank statement, going through it by line, and looking at all these subscriptions that kind of pile up, and because they're so small, you just let them coast. Making sure I knew what they were, finding out what the login was, making sure a record of that, and finding out when the expiration date was so I could call them and cancel it. And that really went a long way to kind of cleaning up what I had to be accountable for.
Was there something that you gained from doing that by printing it out versus like looking at it on an app?
I'm old school, and I was able to use highlighters and red pens, and that gives me joy.
Yes. That brought you joy, okay. And Mark, I'm going to ask you that question. Do you have a life hack, recommendation, or learning for the audience?
Oh man, putting me on the spot.
Yep.
I would just say, coming to events like this, I always, people ask me, you've been to 12 of these, why do you keep coming? I learn something every single time, so kind of like Annie said, you put it out there, and you talk to other people about whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. And especially like in communities like this, I'm amazed at how many people come up and will just help you out with whatever you're thinking about or challenge or whatever. And even yesterday when we had a breakout session, or even after my talk, I don't have all the answers to things. And I just looked to the audience and said, who knows the answer to this question? And there's like 5 people that raise their hand and help each other out. So that, I think, having a community like this, whether it's in the FI community or just a community of, even if you're hikers or bikers or whatever, that can help each other out and lift each other up. I think that's, so community and friendship and things like that are just, they go miles.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And if there's anybody listening to this podcast who is just now finding the FI community and maybe was on a different personal finance path, you should come over to our side and join the cult, because we're awesome. And yeah, for everything that you said, like, the community is the biggest part. So yeah, thank you guys for being here. And yeah, let's hear it one more time for CampFI Mid-Atlantic.
Thanks for listening to the Everyday FI podcast. If you're loving the show, here are some things you can do. Number 1, check out the episode's podcast page on my website, allattemoneyinvesting.com/everydayfi podcast. Don't worry, I'll put it in the show notes. You can listen to the episode and leave comments for myself and the guest. Number 2, if you're interested in sharing your own financial independence story, you can fill out the form on my website's podcast page. You'll find it at the bottom of the episode list. Number 3, subscribe in your favorite podcast player and share it with your friends and family. Also, feel free to leave a review. I love hearing from you. And number 4, if you want more of my content, follow me on Instagram at allattemoney, where I post daily insights on how to reach financial independence. See you next time as we continue to go down the path to financial freedom.